Rethinking Jesus, The Morality and the Myth by David W. Falls, from the February-March 2026 issue of Free Inquiry. Jesus is treated as the ultimate moral guide. Reason asks if he can stand the test. You've heard it in courtrooms, classrooms, and campaign speeches, a quote from Jesus offered as moral truth. Yet, when these words are repeated without scrutiny, they risk insulating us from deeper insight. His teachings are often revered as universal, compassionate, and wise, unquestionable even by secular thinkers who accept him as an ethical shorthand, regardless of belief in his divinity or the reliability of the Gospels. But reverence, especially when inherited, can blur judgment. Familiarity breeds insulation. To understand what we're defending or dismissing, we must examine these teachings, not as sacred truths, but as moral ideas subject to reasoned critique. Only by doing so can we develop ethical systems grounded in empathy, autonomy, and human connection. Many of the teachings attributed to Jesus are praised for compassion and humility, but others raise serious ethical concerns. In Matthew 10, verse 34 to 36, he declares, "Do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword." He goes on to describe families torn apart by loyalty to him, a man against his father, a daughter against her mother. These are not metaphors for unity, but declarations of division, where loyalty to Jesus overrides even family bonds. In the same chapter, Jesus states, "Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me." This isn't a call for empathy. It's a demand for exclusive loyalty. Secular critics argue that such teachings prioritize obedience over autonomy and spiritual hierarchy over human connection. The implications echo far beyond the first century. Loyalty that demands breaking natural bonds has fueled cults, sectarian movements, and political ideologies throughout history. When loyalty is elevated above relationship, division is no accident. It is the system's very design. The cost of allegiance is not merely symbolic. It can fracture communities and families in the name of purity. Other statements are even more extreme. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. Mark 9, verse 43, is a hyperbolic call to self-mutilation. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. Mark 10, verse 25, suggests exclusion based on status rather than behavior. The fig tree episode in Mark 11, verse 12 to 14, also raises questions. Jesus curses a tree for not bearing fruit, even though the text notes it wasn't the season for figs. Whether symbolic or literal, the act seems arbitrary and punitive. If this story is meant to teach judgment or authenticity, it does so through destruction aimed at something innocent. The parables, often praised as moral lessons, also contain troubling implications. The story of the 10 virgins, Matthew 25, verse 1 to 13, rewards exclusion. In the parable of the separation of sheep from goats, the sheep are saved, the goats condemned without nuance or appeal. Matthew 25, verse 31 to 46. These are not teachings that invite complexity. They sort, divide, and punish. If such ideas were attributed to any other figure, they would be scrutinized. With Jesus, they are often rationalized or ignored. These divisions, fueled by loyalty and hierarchy, prompt us to question not only the teachings themselves, but also the authority behind them. What makes a figure like Jesus a moral authority? Is it his words or the reverence we place in them? Moral clarity does not come from claims of divinity. It comes from being consistent. In secular ethics, authority isn't inherited through tradition or myth. It's earned through empathy, accountability, and coherence. Ideas are judged by their consequences. Do they support autonomy, ease suffering, and respect dignity? If not, no amount of reverence can make them right. Secular humanism, for instance, builds its framework on reason, compassion, and social responsibility. It rejects faith as a foundation for morality, insisting instead on principles that can be tested, debated, and applied across cultures. Moral authority, in this view, is not a title but a practice. History offers reminders that revered figures are not above critique. Gandhi's racism, Mother Teresa's ties to dictators, Aristotle's misogyny, each flaw complicates their legacy. Even Abraham Lincoln, often idealized, held views we now reject. Cultural reverence does not guarantee ethical clarity. The point is not to condemn these figures outright, but to insist that moral authority must be earned, not assumed. When we exempt Jesus from scrutiny, treating his teachings as above critique, we abandon the very standards we apply elsewhere. Believing Jesus is morally superior simply because tradition says so isn't a reasoned belief. It's an inherited habit. And habits, however comforting, should be questioned. If we want ethical systems grounded in empathy, autonomy, and accountability, we must examine even the most familiar names. That doesn't mean rejecting everything associated with Jesus. It means refusing to grant moral immunity based on myth, charisma, or cultural inertia. Ideas should stand or fall on their own merit. Reverence is not a substitute for clarity. In a secular framework, meaning is earned through coherence, not inherited through belief. If we want to live ethically, we must choose truth over comfort and reason over tradition. Reverence may feel like loyalty, but when it shields ideas from scrutiny, it becomes projection. We see what we need, not what is there. When projection fades, all that remains is silence. The myth ends, and what we choose to hear in that silence will shape the ethics we inherit, either through inherited tradition or through reasoned critique. Thank you for listening to this audio edition of Free Inquiry, the journal for secular humanist ideas. If you enjoyed this article, consider subscribing to Free Inquiry magazine to explore more thought-provoking content on reason, ethics, science, and free thought. You can find more articles, subscribe, or support our work at secularhumanism.org. There you'll also discover resources on secular humanism, information on upcoming events, and ways to connect with a community of like-minded thinkers. If you believe in the importance of reason, free expression, and humanist values, consider making a donation to support our work. Every contribution helps us continue to publish, advocate, and provide resources for a more rational, secular world. Once again, thanks for listening and for supporting free inquiry, free minds, and free expression.